Hello and welcome to the Dyslexia Explored podcast. I'm Darius Nomderon, your host, and today we're going to do a deep dive into dyslexia fonts. It might be something that you've heard about before, or you might not have heard about it, but basically, what font you use in what you read can make a massive difference to how you experience what you're reading. And our guest today has spent a lot of time thinking about dyslexia fonts. In fact, 17 years ago, when he was at art school, his final year project, he had to do something and he designed a complete dyslexia font. And for the last 17 years, it's been known around the world as helping a lot of people with dyslexia. It's called the Dyslexie font, and it's designed by Christian Boer. Is that right?
Perfect.
Okay. Christian, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
So your accent, you're in Europe, I'm in Scotland, and you're in the Netherlands, is that right?
Yeah, we're in the Netherlands. So I'm not a native speaker, so you will hear it. Sometimes I need to be finding my words, but yeah, I was the worst at English at my class. So I have practiced since the dyslexia font went worldwide. And yeah, I came somewhere. I came somewhere, but I don't want to listen to my own story always.
Yes, yes. Well, you're coming across loud and clear. So first of all, have you got dyslexia yourself?
Yeah, yeah. I have
So learning
dyslexia.
a different language with dyslexia is always hard. And so what's it like learning English as a second language and having dyslexia then? That's intriguing.
Yeah, it's horrible to learn a second language. So I had Dutch, I had German, I had French, and I had English. And I had my French and my German. I literally said to my French teacher, I will know now the same as my last class. I know for sure. So, and that's true. That's true. So, I'm my last trip to France, I used AI to translate, live translate with voice to text to talk to somebody that I need to talk to. My English, I did not learn it on school. I learned it from movies because I was too slow for subtitles to read. So before I was at the end of the sentence, it was gone and the next scene. So I learned to listen to English. So that's certainly differently than talk to English. And so to produce words is it's much harder. But to listen, I get no problem. So sometimes I'm sitting with my wife, as he does not have dyslexia, and I'm just switching and come by BBC, and I'm watching that, and I can follow that because I can listen very clear. There's really no problem anymore. But the problem for my wife is that she cannot follow because there are no subtitles, and it goes sometimes with the dialect or something, and she cannot follow that fluid as I do. But producing, writing, or that kind of stuff is hard for me to do. So you have MBO. So I did a lower level of middle school
Okay.
because of my language problems. And 90% of my school went to the four languages, and the rest of the classes I was too easy for me. And they offered me like 3 years at a row. They offered me to go to a higher level of education, but it was not possible for me because I was at top of my doing to get a 5 for my language. So if I go to a higher level, I must take that up.
So the language was what was holding you
Holding
back
you,
each time.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So you,
So
yeah, it's a very common thing in the UK as well. If you don't
yeah,
get certain language requirements, it doesn't matter, especially English. It doesn't matter how good you are at that particular subject.
yeah,
Even things like physics and maths and things like that, sciences and so on. You're like, I don't use English very much, but still it stops you. So
Yeah.
tell me, take me back. I want to hear your story. So just help people understand a little bit about where you're at the moment, and then we'll wind back. So the dyslexia font is what you're very well known for. Could you describe as what the dyslexia font is for listeners who may not have come across it?
Yeah. It's what I did. The typeface is focused on the common errors that you make. So not all the dyslexic make the same mistakes, but in generally you got certain trip letters and problems while reading, like missing the capital letters and so. And I designed the typeface to be more differentiate between all the letters, so you cannot confuse the letters anymore with each other, or you don't miss something, or it is easier to recognize a letter. To give some visual examples, like you have the H and the N, and by lengthening the ascender, you got more difference. By making bigger openings, it's clearer which letter you see. So when you are reading regular text on size 10, you have microseconds that you focus on a letter, and to next letters and next letters and next letters, to read a word and a whole sentence and to understand what you are reading. So if you have like trick letters that you have difficulties with, if it's clearer to see them and less difficulty to confuse them, you make less errors, so your reading continues. It's pretty easy
Okay.
for me, because I used my reading errors as starting point to
Okay, so you
find the
kind of
typeface.
designed the font for yourself in many ways first.
Oh yeah, I started it with an idea, like rotating and switching the letters. When you write something down, you will see it, but when you are looking at something, you don't see it then, that it is processed in your brain. So, and I was thinking, like, if I can make the typeface more clear, more difference between the letters, it would be easier every microsecond that you see to just flow with reading flow. So, and it went naturally. So when I made it, I tested also directly on 8 other dyslexics, from very light to severe, and there was some difference, so I balanced the typeface out. I designed it in 2008, so that is 2005 are we now, so 20, do I
So
say
eight, what's that?
2008, so
20.
2025 are we now, the
So is that 17 years? Is that?
70 years, yeah.
Yeah, right. So 17 years you designed the font
Yeah,
ago. Right. That's interesting. It's good to sort of anchor that.
yeah.
So to wind us back to, I really like to know, what was life like before you knew you had dyslexia? And what was it that woke you up to your dyslexia? So when did you find out you had dyslexia?
When I was around 6, 7 years old.
That's great.
Yeah,
Okay.
so my I had some troubles. I know some backflashes from school where I struggle with reading, and I make excuses for myself because I didn't know what was happening. So I know that I was sitting in the class and everybody was done, ready. And I was like, I'm tired today. Then the next day, there was something similar. And it was also like, okay, maybe it's not my day or something. And on the end, it was like, okay, I cannot make any excuses anymore, because yeah, there is something. But yeah, I and for the rest, I got no clue at all. So my dad is a teacher of a middle school, or a co-rector of a middle school, and he had some woman coming by, and she said, can I tell you something about dyslexia and some traits, and how you can help your students? And he said, I got no time for it right now, but you can come by home, and we have a cup of coffee, and you can tell me something about it. So she came by and she told everything about dyslexia. We have talked about in the 80s, so it was pretty early. And my mother was just walking by and giving coffee and listen, ear dropping or something. Yeah.
Eavesdropping.
Yeah, and she was like, "You're describing my youngest son." So I have an older brother and an older sister, 5 and 10 years older. So she and they had no problem at all. So she was like, "Hmm, could you look at their son and try to test us and do what you do?" We had crosswalking and making an aid to connect your brain or something. And on the end, she, I know I got some classes from her, and she on the end tested me, and it was completely clear dyslexia. So I went back to like regular class, and my teacher was like, he can talk pretty okay, he's pretty bright, he doesn't want to read, he doesn't want to write, he's really lazy, he needs to be a kick under his ass to get him work. So my parents knew that I worked really hard at home, but she was like, we didn't get grades, it was just, it was okay, a sticker or a no sticker, but that's it. And she punished me for the class like, you get a one. So my mother was picking me up from school, and all the children on the school were yelling outside, "Yeah, Chris has a one," and she was like, "He cannot have a grade. He's too young to have a grade. And why and one? What's happening?" And the teacher was like, "Yeah, I need to punish him for everybody because he needs to work. He needs to get the cake under his ass." And my parents were like, "Okay, but that's not the problem. He works really hard." And she tried to talk some about dyslexia, and I tried to talk to my teacher about dyslexia. And she said, "I don't want to hear about it. He just need to be punished until he works." So she was thinking it was something about motivation. So my parents said, "Okay, please don't talk about it, dyslexia in school. Just keep it for yourself. If you do your best, that's all we can ask. Then it's fine by us." So I learned pretty early on to keep it for myself. It was pretty hard because I still get punished around every day. But yeah, on the end, I went to middle school, never told to a teacher, or sometimes I put something on the desk that you need to write down and your assignment. And I put something on the desk, and they always like, before I hit my own chair, they were, come come back, could you are you dyslexic or something, because they saw my handwriting. And you didn't need to be an expert to see that. So yeah, they knew, my Dutch language teacher knew for certain. She was really nice, but I didn't want any help or something, because yeah, I don't know, maybe from my elementary school, like I don't want to talk about it. I did get some remedial teaching, but yeah, that was not really helping them getting me out of the class, get me separated, reading nonsense words, rows of nonsense words, and then thrown back. And I was like, it's not helping me. So after a couple of classes, I said, I can make a drawing on the wall about a dyslexic head with two brains, and the brains are not connecting with each other with electric plugs. And she was, "Oh yeah," and I made a drawing in my book, and she said, "Oh, I like that." And yeah, they were all my remedial classes, because every week I draw more on the wall. and and I had, with, you got your, how do you say it, you need to talk English with your English teacher for 10 minutes. And I had one other student with me. We're both rubbish at English. So I brought cookies and drinks to it, and you need to talk 10 minutes. So a friend of mine, he said, "Why do you bring cookies?" And I said, "Just keep quiet, because we got 10 minutes, you 5 minutes, me 5 minutes. See, we'll talk for 3 minutes. So we got 4 minutes around. So if she got a cookie in the mouth, she cannot talk. If she got something to drink, she cannot talk. So that saves minutes of what we need to talk. And so I brought everything, and she was, oh, yes, nice. So the test was starting, and she put a cookie in the mouth, and she was like, she immediately knew what I was doing. But she loved and she enjoyed it, and she found it like, okay, that's his way to, yeah, find his way and come across and yeah. So that was,
Fantastic.
yeah.
Fantastic. What a great example of dyslexic problem solving being forced upon us at an early age, and all the different techniques. Either we're very good at problem solving because the way our brains were wired, or we're forced to be good at problem solving because we've got dyslexia. So we find all these diplomatic ways of negotiating, strategically working around things, finding alternate routes, collaborating with other
Yeah.
people, all sorts of things.
Yeah. It's. I see it always like you got your overview. I see myself. I'm also pretty self-aware or something. So that's something works against me, but also it works. It helps me. And sometimes in dyslexic overview to see, okay, everybody is probably scared or probably in this way or mood. So how can I set my goals to adjust and get my goals achieved earlier?
This podcast is sponsored by dyslexiaproductivitycoaching.com, which helps you organize yourself creatively with a productivity system for Apple devices. So you were made aware by that lady coming into the school. Your parents really supported you in that and protected you as much as they could. And what did you end up doing in after school then? Did you become a designer?
Yeah. So I was looking at. I had talent about for psychology. It's a difficult word, but I was really interesting in human mind. But I from early on, dyslexia make people getting adult pretty early because of the problems and knowing that something like that is probably not possible for me within the regular time to study that. I was always drawing. My mother is always drawing. She get portrait classes, and she's really creative. And I was always drawing. That's my way also to listen in the class. I was always drawing and listening because I can focus really good on that way and making language as drawings as telling my story. So that's my way and found my way to graphic design school where I where it's more technical, where I ended up on art school, where it's more conceptual. But yeah, I needed to do the lower level because of my French language teachers and all that kind of stuff. So I had 4 years, extra years of school before I ended on art school.
What art school did you go to?
The HKU of Utrecht, the Art School of Utrecht is that.
Okay, great.
So yeah, and there it was also just I never talked about dyslexia or something. It was always they knew also on graphic design school they knew there were a lot of dyslexic people, but they never talked about it or something. Everybody, yeah, I didn't talk about it. So and I really excelled because I'm good at concepts and that kind of stuff. So and I liked it really. I really liked the school and the atmosphere and other people, creative people, and yeah, that was like homecoming.
So that you
That
said,
was like a homecoming for me because yeah, it was my world, visual world. It was conceptual world. I can do what I was best at. I have no difficulties anymore. I can use my dyslexia in benefits for what I want to do. There was only like one book that you need to learn about iconography. I bought a summarized version of a student, and for the rest, it was like really good for me.
You designed the dyslexia font 17 years ago. So when did you go to art school? Was that part of the art school or was it
Yeah,
just after
yeah.
the art
It
school?
was my final graduation project. So you had your last year, and there was a teacher that said you need to write a script. And I don't know the subject anymore, but you need to write a script. And I was busy with it. And she came back with English philosophical text in Times New Roman, badly copied, dots on the text. And she said before Christmas, like, just read this. It was around 200 pages or something. And I just read 1 or 2 pages on the middle of the day. And it was so exhausting to read those texts. The level was not too hard, but took so much energy to read it. It was all the bad layout, the bad typeface, the bad everything in a foreign language. I literally fall asleep after 2 pages, literally asleep for like 20 minutes. And then I wake up and I was like, okay. And then I read 1 or 2 pages again, fall asleep again. It was like a horror story. It was like no and not getting anywhere. So I tried it 3 days, and after 3 days, it was like okay, it will take me 6 months to get through this text. So after the Christmas holiday, I came back and I told her, I said, I cannot read this in a normal way to get information out of it, to get something on paper for that's worthwhile, that's getting me somewhere. I told her about my dyslexia. And she said, okay, could you explain me how it is to read with dyslexia? And that was for me like, okay, something that I never was really aware of something that yeah, most of the people ask me how it is to read with dyslexia. And I always ask the same question: how it is to read without dyslexia, because that's even bigger. Yeah, it's never aware. So what I did was I read through a camera, handheld camera, and paper on a window. And because I was forced to look through a camera, when I made a mistake, I read it out loud, I go back and then back and forward and going through the text, and you heard my voice making mistakes. And I translate that to several steps. So making a reading error, translated to understanding, translated to images. So if you make a mistake, go back and change the image again to understand the whole the text. And yeah, it was really, she described it, it is a really dizzy making, headache, confusing movie that I made, animation on the end.
So
Where,
you made this sort of animation of your how you perceived reading with this
yeah,
single camera pointing at what, like one or two words at a time?
yeah,
Have you still got that film?
yeah, but it is really old, just so it is really pixelated. I
I'd
have
like to see it. Is it on
okay.
YouTube or something?
Yeah, I have it on YouTube, and it is a shorter version of the whole thing that I made.
Okay,
And
fantastic.
it's our different steps to inwards, to comprehension. So what you
Okay,
to
yes,
what you hear, to what you understand with reading errors, to the images. So
fantastic. That's really nice. And what we'll do is if you're listening, well, you are listening, so swipe up on your podcast app and look for the show notes, and we'll put a link in the show notes directly to the YouTube video so you can just click on it and have a wee look at it right now. So, and that was part of your art school project to go through
yeah,
that and sort of visualize it and so on.
that was for me. So I didn't have to write an inscription. I made the animation for that. And what I did after that, it was your final graduation project. And it was like, okay, maybe you can make a kind of manual for publishers how to make any text dyslexia friendly. So, and that was my final graduation project to start with. And when I was busy, I read something about dyslexia, about switching and rotating and mirroring, and I heard it all my life, but you never don't really experience that way than when you write something down. And I was thinking like that is kind of all 3D movement. So when I have my cup of coffee, it's always a cup of coffee. But and even with a picture, like a photograph, it's always a 3D object. The only 2D object is letters. So probably we treat them like 3D objects, and maybe we need to tie them down and make them clear. And that's was the start of my typeface.
Okay, fantastic. Isn't it interesting that something that you can do in your final project at university is something that influences the rest of your life for
Oh,
17 years, you know?
yeah, to be honest, I was thinking I will make something that my test objects will can use. I'm a practical guy. I want something that I can use for myself. I want to start my own company with graphic design. So I need to read the tax regulations. I need to read my all my stuff to have a company. So I need to have this working, and the other test persons can use it also, and that's it. I was thinking, even at that time, I was not really knowledge about dyslexia itself, than reading, writing, left and right, that minimal of knowledge about dyslexia. It was not about the strength. It was not about 37 different things. It was not about problems with speaking, like from linear speaking and non-linear speaking. And I was thinking I'm one of the 100 people in the Netherlands that has dyslexia. I was always hiding it. I never knew somebody else with dyslexia. So yeah, it was for me, yeah, final graduation project will end in the closet, and I would use something, and that's it. That's the whole. I did all already assignment for companies and small companies,
Yeah,
graphic design,
yeah.
logos, and that kind of stuff. That's the whole. I'm the worst person to do this because everybody emailed me in English. My English presentations, like on art school, you have a lot of international students. So you need to do your presentation in English. But I was so rubbish at English. So what I did no text on the slides for any project that I did. I just put images. And for me, I never learned about the text to speak about the presentation. I just saw the image and tell what I did. That's you never forget your line. But then I needed to talk in English. And with the first presentation, they said, okay, could you please, like slide 3 or something? They said, could you please do it in Dutch because we don't understand it in English. And the English students don't understand. Please, could you please do it? And that was, okay, that's my way out of this. I never put text on the slides, and I do not. Yeah, it was something like middle school also. Like you're at your English class and you need to read out of a book, or even my Dutch classes, you need to read out of book because the teacher wants to know how far you are in the start of the year. And I was like, oh, everybody is nervous. I'm also really nervous with my dyslexia to read out loud. But then, like the first year, I was like, I don't need to be nervous about this. I just do what I do. And that's what they need to accept. So I was not rushed, and I get my turn, and I just read like if I was in my bedroom. And probably in two sentences, the teacher said, "Okay, done." Like everybody was reading two paragraphs, I was two lines, and they, "Okay, we understand. Please stop." And I never get a turn anymore because, like the next class, they was like, "Okay, no, Chris, no, next."
You remind me, you remind me of
Yeah.
my grandfather, my wife's grandfather. His wife got him to go to the shops, and he went to the shops and he had a list of things to go and buy, and he bought all of the wrong things, and he came back with the bag of all the wrong things. And his grandmother was like, went through the list, said, Bobby, you got this. Why'd you get that? You got this. Why'd you get that? Bobby, I'm never going to ask you to go to the shops again. And Bobby looks at my, my wife and he goes, he smiles and he sits down.
Exactly, that's it.
So there's advantages in doing it so painfully, slowly, and honestly that the teacher just goes, oh, enough already. I won't call on you again.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
oh
but
my
that's
goodness.
that's yeah, you're aware, and then okay, it's okay, that's my way out of this. I never have to do this again. So yeah.
Oh,
But the
hilarious.
biggest thing was, after years of the art school, they in 2011, when the media jumps on the typeface, and I won a couple of prizes, and I did one presentation in Dutch or for 500 people or something, and then they called from Dubai and they said, "Could you do a presentation here in Dubai with 1,000 people, TEDx, and a live stream?" And I said, "Yeah, fine." And I found somebody who wrote something down for me, and I was like in the airplane, and I was like, I never have done this before, and I'm rubbish at this. So I learned the whole way in the plane. I the next day we had rehearsals, and it was with every slide like a sentence, and then I just forgot a word, something, and I stopped. Okay, next slide, and beginning of the sentence, and then like it was like hell because before and after me was like, yeah, some adjustments and fine. And I was like, with every sentence, I just stopped and didn't know the lines. So I learned with a jet lag the whole night at the room, at the hotel room, did not sleep, was really like really nervous. I was like, if somebody could hit me conscious, so I would pay you. I was more nervous than when I jump out of a plane with a parachute. I did that. That was fun. But this was like really hard. But I managed. It was, you can see it online. It's around more. It was like, yeah, it was the most scariest thing I did in my life. It, yeah.
So let's talk about fonts and,
Yeah.
let's just get into, I think you're probably someone who's spent a huge time of their life thinking about fonts and dyslexia and how they improve dyslexia. So first of all, you've designed a dyslexia font to emphasize certain aspects of it. And there are multiple different fonts that people say are good for dyslexia and fonts that are not good for dyslexia. Some fonts are good for dyslexia without trying to be good for dyslexia. They're just a bit better than other fonts. And then there's a set of fonts that are actually designed for people to help them read.
Yeah.
And what I would find really interesting is if you could sort of explain to me some of the principles that you've observed. It's talked a lot about British Dyslexia Association, for example, talks about how to choose your own particular font for reading, and it can be different for different people, etc. So, what are your thoughts and reflections on dyslexia on fonts for
Yeah,
reading
in general,
with
in general.
dyslexia?
It's
Yeah.
it was like when I graduated and then it started great, and all dyslexic people came by and I wanted to, I had some articles and was like, okay, what are schools doing right now? Like you had like Vedana, comics, a couple of like 5 typefaces that were in the Netherlands with schools. And after you see those 5 coming back and back and back and back. And why is that? So what I did is compare them to each other. And what I noticed was that some of the letters are like with Vedana and Tahoma, and that some of the letters stand out more. So you have your whole, like when you make a typeface, the arch of the H will fit on the U, will fit on the N, will fit on, like you try to design within a grid to make, I call it twin letters. The problem is for people with dyslexia, if you make them as similar as possible for somebody that have problems with reading. But what those 5 have is some of the letters will stand out. So the E or the S or the D will really just does not fit in that grid kind of way. Design a mishap, or they could not fit it like with the E, fit it in the grid or something. So it stands out a little bit. So what you get is you got children, elementary school situation, you got, I don't know, 10 children with dyslexia, you put them in one class. If you got a good one from school, to put them all in the class and say, we have 5 texts here. Which of the 5 texts with the typeface do you like? Then you end up that the one person with dyslexia that noticed having a problem with the E or something, with the Tahoma or the S, will choose the Tahoma. And the child that will say it loud, or is best to communicate to say, I like Tahoma better than the rest, or you have 2 children or 3 children that have the same trick letter, they will say Tahoma. But the child that has not a problem with the E or the S and prefer Fadana or prefer one of the other, but cannot explain it that well, or explain is as loud as possible, or isn't sure of itself or need more time, will not be heard, and that font will not be chosen. So it's really good if you look at those 5, because you will see the letters that stand out. They all have a couple of letters that stand out. Then
What
you
are
have,
they again? What are the 5 fonts?
oh, I need to look them all.
Is it so
Tahoma, Fadana,
Comic Sans?
Comic Sans. But Comic Sans is one particular that has a lot of difference between the letters.
Yeah, because Comic Sans is often recommended for dyslexia
Yeah, certainly.
because of that.
Yeah.
And there's something, and
That is differently designed, because it is not a reading letter, then it's within a comic thing, but it has a lot of differentiation between the letters. So that is pretty good typeface, like to choose for people with dyslexia. But it never was intended to design specific for the errors that we make.
yes,
So
it's accidentally, yeah,
yeah, but
helpful.
the best accident.
Yes,
All
yeah.
the accidents of the other 5s is the best accident. But if you have something that is focused to designed for that purpose, you can better choose than the accident.
Yes.
But
So in a
it's not
way,
a bad way.
you've looked at all the accidental differences that have
Yeah,
happened in these 5 common
yeah,
typefaces, and then you've made the accidents deliberate by putting them all together. So
yeah.
it's accidentally different and stands out and looks a bit different, because actually with the font, often what a designer is looking for is this beautiful flow.
Oh yeah.
And in a way, what you're saying is there are certain letters that break that flow. And so, from a design point of view, might be an awkward artifact. But that awkward artifact is actually the feature that a
Yeah,
person with dyslexia is utilizing to just find something that differentiates them in that uniform flow.
yeah,
And so, what your font is doing is creating multiple differentiations all the way along so that you can more clearly differentiate those letters.
yeah, yeah. So, and then you have, because before for me, there were people that tried to make legible fonts, like for, so you have from the early 1880 or 1900, you have a struggle between sans serif and serif fonts, where serif fonts,
Sorry, for those who are listening, serif is what you're saying. So just
yes,
so that people are, on track with you. So you've got sans serif, and serif is with
New
all
Roman.
the sharp edges and quiffs, like it's been chiseled out like Roman letters.
Yeah,
And then sans serif is without serif. It's nice and smooth and curvy. Is that right?
smooth and curvy. It's without the extra
Okay.
classical way. So, and there is always a struggle between what is more legible, what is more readable in general by without the dyslexic people. For communication on metro stations, there was a tram signs where the general population would choose for sensory, and university will choose the classical serif font. Then you have a part, what is custom, what is used to, what are you used to. If you read a lot in that way and you don't have dyslexia, you like that. So there is never a study done that confirmingly says serif or sans serif. So if you translate that to dyslexic people, you got 96% of people with dyslexia prefer a sans serif font. But there are still 4% of people that likes a serif font, where literally the most people with dyslexia said, this is really horrible to read. And
Yeah.
I'm talking here about always like reading, like if you have, for example, yeah, if you have a DVD, the title can be of Superman in block letters or Batman with spikes. There is no dyslexic person that really has problem more than a non-dyslexic person. But if you twist on the DVD cover, then you have the small text, and there it's like one sentence, two sentences, and three sentences in. There are the problems for somebody. So when I'm talking about typeface, it's always about the functional reading part. That's the trouble for people with dyslexia in books.
Yes, yes. So fundamentally, within fonts, you've got those with the serifs, the extra little edgy bits,
Yeah,
and without the serifs, the smoother letters. The smoother letters are generally better for people with dyslexia and general better for people reading on the whole, and definitely much better for people with dyslexia. So that's the first element within
yeah,
fonts. And then there's also another aspect in all of this is also font weights and font thicknesses. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah, yeah,
something
yeah,
I
yeah.
know you're really interested in too. Is like, like I develop an app, Ivy, and that's why I connected with you, because I wanted to include Ivy inside of our app, the dyslexia font inside of the app. That you've got a number of things that affect your ability to read, like line spacing, the size of the writing. Like in the British Dyslexia Association recommends 16 point. Write emails in 16 point, not
Yeah.
12, not 14, but 16. What's your view on how big
Okay, but
the
that's
letters should be?
if I could finally nerd out on font when a point is 0.3 millimeters, so it's 1/3 of a millimeter. If you and that's from printing letters. So if you have a printed letter and you put your lineal next to it, by the millimeters times 3, you know the point size that is used around.
Okay.
Yeah. But then you go to a
So
screen.
if you say if something's 12 points and you divide it by 3, then it's 4 millimeters high.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So a 12-point letter is about 4 millimeters high.
But that's on paper. Then you
Okay.
go to a screen
Yes.
that's in pixels. And a pixel is, in the early days, was bigger than a pixel now. So you
Okay.
have high definition 4K screens, and you got your screen from the early days with 500 pixels high and 300 pixels wide.
Okay,
And
so what you're saying is in the old days, we would maybe do like a 12-point font or a 16 font. And now that the screens are getting higher definition and more compact, the text is getting smaller and smaller.
yes, indeed, because my brother, he's really a Windows guy. I'm an Apple guy. He's a Windows guy, and he get a really big screen, but really high density, like 8K or something. And he standardly enlarges every website he comes on. While if you took an older screen where it's not even just like 90/20, 1080, then the same size is large enough that you can even make it smaller because it's too large. So
Okay.
the points of printing material is not directly convertible to screens. And that's the problem with reading on screens. And the amount of pixels is also not a measurement because the density of the pixels are
Yeah.
also, because Apple has a denser, smaller pixel than different. So that's a really interesting thing because the measurement of points is not translated to screens. So in the early days, like when in 2010, size 14 was big enough. Now
Yeah, yeah.
they do
Now it's not
16.
big enough. Yeah, so you do 16 instead, I see. So one of the things that I'm intrigued by, and there are different kinds of dyslexia fonts now.
Yeah.
Were you the first? Were you
No,
the
no, no,
first?
no, no. No, I was not the first because for me, there were people that tried to make a font. They were not dyslexic themselves. They tried to make it as, yeah, uniform,
Consistent. Yes.
consistent, legible in a non-dyslexic way,
Okay.
in a design thing that they tried it, but it was never. And after me, also, you got Lexi or something. I don't know the name exactly from Google, and they did it what they did before me by doing the same. And I was the first one that said, no, I'm dyslexic myself. I'm focused on the errors and I use my dyslexic brain that tricks me into designing for me. And so a heavier bottom, that's only because you make a kind of a pyramid of it. So you can only read it at once and it follows the 3D movements. So it helps you in that way. But not all letters you can flip upside down, like the O. The O is an O, always is an O. So, but I did that just as a continuous thing, but it was not necessary. So I did a couple of things that were not necessary. So you do see after me some people that say, "Oh, I will do the same kind of thing," and they make the other side of the O also bold because they did not understand the system beat of the idea behind it. And also, making underside bold is one way, but you can do also a gradient, or you can do also within the letter flag dot. kind of way, not within the letter. So like put it attached within the size itself. What is more elegant way and will fit better in regular systems than what I did as a graduation project to demonstrate what I want.
Have you
So
ever been tempted to create other versions of your font, like we're using different techniques or anything like that?
yeah. If you look at you have variable fonts
Yes.
that's scalable, like light to severe in this way.
Okay.
Now, explain my. You understand my
So
idea?
from light, medium, bold, is that what you mean?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
so for light dyslexic, severe dyslexics, you can scale that up or less. But the technique is there from making a font, but you cannot use it anywhere. It's not on your phone. It's not in Word. It's not. It's in Adobe InDesign. It's within making a website. You have 2 points where you can exactly measure that out. So the height and the thickness and the width of the letters, you can do amazing stuff. But all those functions could be, you can make a font, but the regular teacher that's helping the student with dyslexia has no use of that.
So what happens is that you've created this Dyslexie font. It's called Dyslexie font, isn't it?
Yeah,
Not
because in,
Dyslexia font. It's IE, isn't it? Because of
yeah,
the
because in the
Netherlands.
Netherlands, yeah, I never knew that. I went to worldwide.
Yes, yes. So you've called it Dyslexie font,
It's
and other people are like Dyslexia font. So if you're looking
I'm
for
learning from other people.
look for Dyslexie font, and we'll put it in the show notes as well, so you can go and see what
Yeah.
Christian is talking about here. So for people to use that font, it's not like you can go into Microsoft Word and go and type in Dyslexie font, can you?
Yeah, if you have it on your computer.
But you have to load it up specially on your computer.
Yeah, what you do, the TTF file is kind of a non-active program. So it's a non-active program. So you download it, double click, a window pops up, says install. But what it does, it places it in the font folder. That's
Okay.
it.
Yeah. So, and then once you've got it downloaded on your computer, is that it available everywhere on
Yeah,
your computer?
yeah.
So if you've got different, typing in places, you can pick that as a font.
Everywhere where you can select the typeface, you can select Dyslexie. And what I also use is in Firefox, you have in your settings, in your Firefox, you have a force font button, check mark. So you can check it on and you force font in everything. So you can read everything in the Dyslexie. We have also a Chrome extension, but I do like the force font because it's way stronger and it's loaded before the website is loaded. So you can use it in Google Docs and in the online Word
I
version.
see. Nice. So that's only in Firefox. It's not in Chrome or
No, yeah,
Safari.
In Chrome we have a Chrome extension.
Okay. And
It's
what do you do with the Chrome extension?
it's just a regular extension. You can download it. You put it on like any extension. The typeface function is free, so you can use it. That's the main thing. So anybody can read anything online in the typeface. And we have an extra full version for 12 euros a year. So you get your color of the letters, the size, the interline, the spacing, and immersive reader. And I have also add form because yeah, I
A what?
hate form. So I hate form filling in forms. So and sometimes the labels of the forms on the website you come on are correct, so it fills out, but sometimes it does not, or you need your P number or something that you never use, and you need to find it out. It's fill it in, and it's drag and drop. It's just
Oh, I see. So it's a
yeah,
form filler.
yeah. So it's
That's
making
great.
Yeah, it's just the extension is something like if I hate it, maybe can come up with a solution and put it in. So sometimes, like every year, I do an update and try to find
Excellent.
a new
Excellent.
themes to help people.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So and when you download the font for your computer, is that free or do you pay for that?
No, it's one time 45 euros and
Okay.
lifetime. So because when you make a backup of your computer, it's making a backup of everything except the folder. So after a while, you get a new computer or an extra computer or e-reader or whatever. You just can sign in again and download it again. In the early days, we had it for free for home users, but everybody was a home user. Yeah, so we really tried it for four years, 5 years, with the idea like, okay, 80% is home user, 20% is company and schools, but those have a budget for it, and we can pay for everything by using that. It's not for the money; it's just to keeping running, and it's a full-time job for me and my colleague. So yeah, we cannot do anything else than this. So that need to be paid. But yeah, we had universities that had like 12 teachers that said, my own kids, yes, but you use the address and email of, and even the principal of the university, yeah, but it's my, no. I had companies like the biggest companies, I would not name, but I had over 30,000 accounts that were directly to companies and schools. That was, we get calls like really arrogant, like, my colleague says it, how can you roll it out on the network? And then we log in, you have a home license. Yeah, and I want it. And it was like, it was really burden and no money coming in from,
Yeah.
yeah. And we tried to say, okay, you need to go and click this button, like, I'm not a home user, and mention it, and we tried everything. And after 3 years, it was 4 years, it was like, okay, we need to pay for everything to run it. We
Yes.
need to follow the laws with protection of data. Yeah, we on the end we said, okay, just ask one time fee and do not more than a general font with Adobe or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Great. So it's been fantastic to hear the whole story. And now what you're saying is it's still a full-time job for you to manage all the demand and interest in the font itself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. From pretty similar, like, can I get it on my phone, or can I print, or what can I do with the typeface? Yeah, typing right now to publishers, helping them to get their text correct, getting there in a good way, helping big projects like with the government, with communication with the general population. I do the week of dyslexia here in the Netherlands. That takes a lot of time, and that's more voluntarily to get more knowledge about dyslexia itself. It was more about when I was working a lot with the type, like the half of the questions was about dyslexia itself. And I was like, okay, if there is so much need about dyslexia, so much need about knowledge about dyslexia and understanding, it's more about than reading alone. We need to get something. So you got something like in America, you got your dyslexia month, you got your UK dyslexia week. And I was like to one of the volunteers of a dyslexia organization, I said to Nell, could we do a day? They have a month, they have a week. Could we have a minimal day just for education, teachers, for parents, for the dyslexic themselves, just to get across the general idea of dyslexia, the whole. We're like, yeah, neurodiversity, and that Helen Taylor we invited and that kind of stuff. And that went on to from 2018 until now to a whole week. So it's still necessary. We do it together with the Hoy Foundation. That's similar like in America, the noticeability. So looking at the strengths and telling the children, they know what they cannot do. They need to learn what they can do, because there's the future, there's the strength, there's their talent, and that's the future. They need to know. And that helped them to get it even with what they have promised with. So we have this happy dyslexic festival, and the children do workshops, and the parents get educated. Where it's a little joke, and but they get, all the parents can talk with each other, and they get lectures, and they can do, it's really good. It's I'm doing it voluntarily, building it up with the Hoy Foundation, because it's helping so many people. So
It's
it's
fantastic. It's fantastic. And we'll put a link in the show notes as well to that so that anyone who hears it will go straight to your,
oh
you
yeah,
know,
it would be great.
page for that so people can link straight through it from the Netherlands. So let's wrap this up. I think it might be just useful to just give some general advice to people who are thinking about how to help other people with dyslexia read or even help themselves read. And some basic things are use a sans serif font,
Yeah,
like what you've been talking about. Think about the size of it. Think about changing the boldness, the size from 8 point up to 14 or 16 point. It can make a
it's
massive
example. Yeah,
difference. The sort of weight of the text can make a difference as well, whether it's sort of light, medium, or bold. And this sort
yeah,
of medium weight can make a big difference as
yeah,
well, or even bold. And then also the background color of the page can make a difference. A lot of people find if you tint the background color, you might have Arlene syndrome where you've got visual stress as well as dyslexia. But even people who don't have that syndrome find reducing the visual contrast between the black text and the background can help with the visual stress as well. And they're often there, it creates a little bit of dissonance, and that reduces that dissonance and makes it easier to read. So there's some very simple things like that. And also you can think about line spacing.
yeah,
Sometimes if the line spacing is too tight, it can be harder to read. If you can increase the line spacing to 1.5 spacing, that can be very pleasant for the reading. It can help you stay on the line and not
yeah,
jump words. So there's lots of little things you can do, and I highly recommend the British Dyslexia Association has got a leaflet on this where you could. I'll put it into the show
yeah.
notes as well.
Good,
And if
good.
you've got something as well, maybe in English, I'll put a link in it as well.
Yeah. Later on, I will come with a series of. You mentioned a couple of them. I explain also why on the page, making the sentence not too wide. So keep in mind
Yes.
a couple of 9 words. That would be great, not longer, because then it will take ages to get down, and the switch from the end to the sentence to the next one is too long, so you can skip a sentence. Make paragraphs, just hit an enter. No in jumps, just make an enter. Give, because
Yes.
you get chunks of information that is processed in the brain, and then it's easier to process the whole story and to understand. And visual assistant would be also nice, a picture with it. And yeah, there are so many things that you can do with the text. If you have a comma and one word on the end, just put the comma on the end and one word to the next line, because the comma is all often missed, or the dot is often missed. If the next sentence begin, give that break to a dyslexic person to understand this was one sentence, the next sentence begins on the next line
Yes.
with a minimal of one word. So if you have one word, just put it to the next line. It's not
Yeah.
hurting anyone. It helps to get that reading flow and the comprehension up, and let them go reading.
Well, that's fantastic. Any final words before we head off?
Yeah, we are more than reading. We're more than a language. And something like AI is doing a lot of goods, like your mind map. app that shows you a lot of good things helping people. The technology is getting more and more advanced. We have so many ideas. If the coding and the language is not anymore a barrier, we could prevail more and get more ideas out. I'm looking forward to the future and hoping that the idea of neurodiverse teams in companies getting even a broader understanding. And we are not excluding anymore, but including people for their talents, for
Yes.
what they are good at, and not disparate for things that we are not good at.
Yeah. I think AI is going to be a really equalizing force in just translating things into the language we want to hear. Even the concept of translating someone who speak something that someone's speaking in English can be translated instantly into Russian or Czech or Spanish or into the Dutch, instantly. And you're like, great, that's in my language. I don't need to learn this different language in the same way. And it's the same with dyslexia. I don't, the written word is not my native language. Concepts, ideas, hearing it, sounding it out is. So if someone could read it out to me in the same way, that's fantastic. That's great. And even sometimes hearing the spoken word being spoken slowly is actually a barrier for some people. It's like, I want to hear it at 2 times speed or 3 times speed at the speed that I'm thinking. So come on, speak faster. And so sometimes you can take that written word and then speed it up to the sound that you're thinking. And you can do it at 2.5 speed, which is your preferred speed with your preferred my AI voice. And it's interesting, some AI voices you can listen to faster than a human voice. Have you
Yeah,
noticed that?
yeah. It's
So,
it.
like, I can listen to some AI voices at 3.5 speed, but I couldn't listen to a human voice speeded up to 3.5 speed. Certain human voices can't go up to 3.5 speed. It's just harder to understand. They don't articulate so clearly, etc. Whereas the AI voice can actually speed up and make accommodations. So there's so many different tools that AI is going to give us that's going to be a leveler.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Christian, thank you very much for coming in and sharing your dyslexia story. Thanks very much.
Thank you for having me. It was nice to talk to you again.
Yes, and to you. Yeah.